What's up, guys? This is Mr. Eldridge, and in today's lesson, we're going to look at the reactionary movements to this Gilded Age. So first and foremost, I think it is important for us to understand the impact that unions are going to have during this time period. So there is a clarification that must take place. So labor unions are organizations that act as an intermediary between its members and the business that employs them. Traditionally, when we talk about unions, there are three goals. One, better working conditions for their workers. Number two, better benefits. And then number three, more money. During this Gilded Age, we are going to see a massive accumulation of wealth. It's said that 1/8 of the population had 7/8 of the wealth. And so therefore, you are going to see reactions traditionally through these unions to this unequal distribution of wealth. While many early attempts to unionize were obstructed by the state, American workers diligently formed several different labor unions. In the 1860s, organizations such as the National Labor Union and the Knights of Labor rose in popularity but struggled to achieve their goals for several reasons. The primary reason for these failures of these early unions is what's called wildcat strikes. These are unorganized and unimproved strikes by the workers. Too many demands and the inability to unify skilled and unskilled laborers as the latter look down on the former. However, by 1886, Samuel Gompers, who was the head of the American Federation of Labor, successfully made several gains by refining union tactics. Gompers and the AFL focused on simple, small-scale changes, such as hours and wages, and formed trade union federations that kept skilled and unskilled labor largely segregated but jointly unified against the employers. Early union gains included an 8-hour workday, a federal labor department, and the end of the exploitative practice of convict labor. On the agricultural front, many farmers were disgruntled with the conditions under which they were forced to manage regarding the deflation of grain prices, the exploitation of grain elevators, these are storage managers and facilities, if you will, and railroads. Conditions for farmers was worsened by the exploitation of grain elevator pricing and unnecessary, expensive middleman financiers. Additionally, in the late 19th century, railroad companies charged significantly higher rates per pound for smaller loads and shorter distances, a detrimental policy for small farmers who depended on the railway transportation services. As such, farmers began to form groups such as the Grange. This is a organization that worked to provide information on agriculture businesses and fellowship for farming communities. The Grange won discounts for farming machinery and were able to set a max price on grain rates with the 1877 Supreme Court case of Munn versus Illinois. Finally, the Grange was able to protect farmers from expensive middlemen by instituting a cash-only policy free of third-party financing or price swindling. Also during this time period, you're going to have what's called the populist movement. In an effort to combat the situation for farmers politically, the last great agrarian movement formed in the 1880s. The political party of this populist movement was known as the People's Party. The Populist Party moved for several local reforms and elected some federal officials to office by allying with many Southern Democrats against pro-business Republicans. Their overall gains were to fight monopolies, fight crony capitalism, and to protect agriculture from financiers, railroad companies, and big business. Populists pushed for the direct election of senators rather than allowing easily bribable state legislatures to elect federal senators. While the Populist Party was mostly unsuccessful due to the threat of splitting the Democratic Party, they laid the groundwork for the latter progressive movement and marked the last major reform movement driven specifically by farmers. Finally, we need to talk about the Southern economy here. Despite attempts to industrialize, the South remained focused on agricultural production, most notably cash crops such as rice, corn, and then yes, cotton. There were notable attempts to promote industry in the South. Tax incentives and lucrative deals were not enough to entice large quantities of entrepreneurs. As such, the South remained largely dependent on sharecropping, tenant farming, and cash crops, and then the development of many small-scale Southern cotton mills. In combination with damage to infrastructure, population displacement, and the death from the Civil War, the South largely failed to industrialize at even a fraction of the pace and scale as the North.